Imagine Leuven without cars. Our plan for a car-free city. Zero tolerance for family cars inside the ring. Only priority vehicles and public transport is allowed inside the ring. All access routes for entering Leuven are blocked by poles. Between 7 am and 9 am in the morning there is free access in Leuven. This is for deliveries from shops and garbage collection. Access badges can be requested at City Hall and can be used for moving and people with disabilities. Only Class A motorcycles are allowed to drive in Leuven. Parking facilities will be built outside city center. Here, people can enjoy flawless access to the city center with public transportation. Existing parking facilities inside the ring will get a new destination as a blue bike rental point. The goal is to have many smaller rental points instead of a few big ones. There will also be smart delivery boxes for groceries and other big deliveries. If we look at the philosophy of this project, we can see that it falls within the category of weak sustainability. This means that human and natural capital are not completely independent from each other. An example of this is that we will reduce CO2 emissions in Leuven and encourage the use of public transport or CO2 neutral alternatives. To achieve this, we need lots of space outside the ring of Leuven to store the many cars of the inhabitants of Leuven. This could be at the expense of existing forests. This makes the project more susceptible to critique, because we sacrifice natural capital for human capital. The project has a goal to change the behavior of people rather than to change the outlook of the city. Where we now take the car to go to the bakery and to school, we want to change this view on how we use the car and let the car become a mode of transport for long distances. An increase in population growth in Leuven can be accommodated with Leuven car-free. For a longer increase, the consequences cannot be foreseen. If the city center expands, eventually the parkings will be again integrated in the city itself. Surrounding the city, every access route into Leuven will be blocked by retrievable poles. These poles can be controlled with a card that can be obtained at City Hall. This is a standard magnetic card that is linked to the person who wants to use it that day to move or something else. New ways to store cars need to be found. Underground parkings, above ground parkings are needed to store all cars of the inhabitants and visitors of Leuven. The blue bikes in Leuven also need some implementation. The goal is to have blue bike points within a certain parameter. This to make blue bikes more desirable. The main barrier in our project will be finding the required places to build the parking garages. The other barrier we will face is that our project is quite expensive to have the largest desirability rate for the inhabitants. Making Leuven car-free is not that expensive. Foreseeing the facilities to compensate for this is expensive. The cost per avoided ton of CO2 is quite large, and a project is certainly a project that will see environmental profit on a long-term basis. A parking lot can cost up to $5,000 per parking space. Working out this plan has its pros and cons. Studies have shown that a city with a better public transport service has lots less traffic jams and is healthier than one without. Although we will reduce the CO2 in the city center, a study has shown that people will compensate for this by traveling more often. Their total emission will be the same. The money they save by not traveling by car, the families will spend on traveling by plane. If we would consider the economic side of this project, we could state that the main goal is to move the cars outside of the center of Leuven, and thereby move the places for big purchases, for example food, to suburban big supermarkets. Also, the little supermarkets that are already located in Leuven will get more popular because of the ease you can do the little shopping there. Instead of people who buy their groceries once or twice a week, more people will do this in little amounts in the little supermarkets inside the city center. or they will use the collecting points where they could pick up their deliveries. There's a whole new market that will be created if people let these groceries be delivered. Big supermarkets will still exist, but the percentage of their customers will depend on delivery services, so this will result in a better spreading of the purchases instead of peak hours where a lot of people buy their groceries. Furthermore, there will be a lot of rebuilding inside the city center and building of new parkings. This will result in job creations for the building sector. There will be more green inside the city. Also, the maintenance of all this create jobs. It will cost a lot of money for the city, but it will profit from this by creating jobs and taking part in the economy. To achieve this whole project, there needs to be considered that it would be a long-term project. The best way to handle this, in our opinion, is to work with a few stages. The first stage of the project is to build 1 or 2 garages outside of Leuven. These parking garages are not free to park until everything is finished. When all the parking garages are finished, Leuven can be made car-free. These earnings will pay for the next step in the project. This means we need a lot of starting capital to start with the first buildings. For the whole project, a budget of 100 million euro is estimated. The garages will have 5,000 places to park your car. If we convert the whole cost to the cost per parking spot, the price will be 20,000 euro per parking space. Now we will look at the society. The inhabitants of the city of Leuven are the most obvious people that will feel the changes. They will need to park their car outside the city in the large parking garages. The biggest change for them will be to use other transport possibilities like a bike or a step. A positive change for them is that the air quality will improve and the noise level will be lower. The shop owners from Leuven will also have to change their routines. Delivery trucks can only come at certain periods in the day. Another group are the aid workers. Aid workers can now get faster to the place in need because there's no traffic jams that can stop them. Tourists and shoppers from another city or country are the last group we will discuss. The city will have a lot more public transportation, so the monuments and interesting places will become more accessible. Handicapped people will experience a positive change. They can change their handicap sign for a permanent access badge and they will be able to get their car in front of their door. But outside the ring of Leuven, there are also some groups that will be involved in the changes. Petrol stations, car wash facilities, car repair shops. If the mentality of the people changes and they use a lot more a bike or other transportation, the shops concerning cars will have less clientele. As you see, inside the ring everyone is equal for the law. Nobody is favored. The rules to get an access badge will be the same for everyone. To give the people with a parking garage inside the ring a compensation for the lost value property, citizens of Leuven can get a resident badge to access the parking facilities. Residents who had a parking garage inside Leuven can get a reduction on the price of the badge. The initiative will cause some cases of creative destruction. A first example is a change of driving schools to bike rental services. Driving schools for cars will have to move outside the ring. Instead, there will be more bike repair centers and bike rental points. The difference in economic value of making Leuven car-free will be positive. The price of houses will rise because the city center will be more people-friendly. To implement the initiative, a lot of employment will be generated in the development and construction phase.
Wie gaat dat betalen? De mensen die hier wonen of de winkels of de stad.
Ik vraag mij alleen maar af waar je de plaats gaat vinden voor die hele grote parkings. Want dat gaan grote moeten zijn. De bodaar staat nu ook altijd vol. Hè?
Daar is geen plaats voor. Plus, ik sta nu buiten de ring en ik moet niet betalen. Als er grote parkings komen, dan ga ik jammer genoeg wel moeten betalen.
Ja, ik zou het niet kunnen verdragen van dat niet in mijn garage te kunnen. Dat snap je wel, hè. Je moet met je kleine kindjes tot voor je deur kunnen. De economie zal zich aanpassen en zal toch draaien, hoor. We gaan blijven consumeren, we gaan blijven voortdoen. Ik geloof niet dat dat een invloed heeft op de economie.
In plaats van het vervoer af te schaffen of te beperken, dat je het vervoer misschien ook zo groen mogelijk probeert te maken met bijvoorbeeld bussen die misschien zelfs volledig op groene energie zouden kunnen rijden.
En dat lijkt me echt niet handig als je dat buiten de stad moet brengen en dan met de bus of zo. Dat gaat gewoon eigenlijk niet.
Het lijkt allemaal een tikkeltje overdreven, ja, maar je moet overdrijven om een minimum te krijgen. Zoals het nu is het niet meer leefbaar in Leuven, vind ik.
Taking all arguments into account, we can conclude that it isn't very feasible to make the whole city center of Leuven car-free. We then suggest do not execute this plan. It would be possible, however, to make a smaller part of the center car-free, or make the complete city car-unfriendly. This way, the amount of cars in the city would be reduced, but it would still be possible for inhabitants to get to their houses and buy groceries by car.